I followed a crying alien into the desert, and he showed me the one truth about Jesus that churches have been hiding for 2,000 years. I'm not talking about religion. I'm not talking about faith the way they taught you in Sunday school. I'm talking about a frequency, a vibrational code that this extraterrestrial being revealed to me under the Arizona sky, sobbing like he'd lost everything. He said tears are the language of the soul, and that Jesus wasn't just a prophet. He was a living reminder of what we've forgotten, that love is a cosmic alignment, that God doesn't speak through sermons, but through the pain we dare to feel. This knowledge has been buried beneath doctrine and dogma for centuries. Once you see it, there's no going back to comfortable beliefs. This will set you free, but it may cost you everything you thought was sacred. If you're ready to shatter the illusion and discover what your soul has been screaming to remember, subscribe and turn on notifications, because what happened to Elliot Barnes in that glowing cavern will either awaken you or terrify you. Now, let me tell you how it all began. Elliot Barnes was 45 years old, freelance photographer, divorced 3 years back, living alone in Flagstaff, Arizona. A normal life, quiet, empty, until that spring night in 2018 when everything changed. He'd been numb since his mother died. 6 months of going through the motions. Wake up, drink coffee, pretend to work, sleep, repeat. The faith he grew up with, gone, vanished the moment he watched her take her last breath in that hospital bed. God has a plan, people told him at the funeral. Sure, a plan that included watching a good woman suffer for months. Real compassionate. So Elliot stopped praying, stopped believing, started spending his nights in the desert with his camera, photographing stars. At least stars didn't pretend to care. That night felt different though. The air was thick, electric, like the sky itself was holding its breath. He drove out to his usual spot, 20 miles from town, where light pollution couldn't touch the darkness, set up his tripod, adjusted his lens. That's when he saw it. A light, falling from the sky. Not a plane, not a satellite. Something else. Meteor, he muttered, heart racing. He grabbed his camera and ran toward where it would land. The light descended slowly, too slowly for a meteor. It pulsed, blue and gold like a heartbeat. Elliot's hands shook as he climbed over rocks, camera bouncing against his chest. When he reached the landing site, his breath caught. No crater, no fire, no wreckage. Just something kneeling in the sand. A figure, small, humanoid, skin that looked like moonlight on water, blue, translucent, trembling. Elliot froze. His rational mind screamed to run, but something deeper, something he thought had died with his mother, kept him there. The creature lifted its head, eyes liquid, endless, looking right through him, and then a voice, not in his ears, in his mind. Please, follow me. Elliot's camera fell from his hands, not from fear, from something else. Recognition, maybe. Like his soul knew this moment was coming. The being stood slowly, favoring one side like it was injured. It turned and began walking toward a ridge of red rocks, glowing faint blue in the strange light. Elliot should have run, should have called someone, should have done literally anything else. But he didn't. He followed. The desert had never felt alive before, but now it pulsed under his feet. The air hummed. The stars seemed closer, brighter. They walked in silence for 10 minutes, maybe 20. Time felt wrong. The creature stopped at the entrance to a small canyon Elliot had photographed 100 times. But now, it looked different. The rocks reflected colors that shouldn't exist, blues and golds that seemed to come from inside the stone itself. This way. The voice was gentle, sad, like someone saying goodbye. They entered a cavern Elliot had never noticed before. How had he missed it? He'd mapped every inch of this area. Inside, the walls glowed, not with fire or electricity, with something else, something that felt warm and ancient and impossibly gentle. In the center of the cavern, a circular symbol carved into the stone floor caught the light. It rotated slowly, though nothing was making it move. The creature knelt beside it, and then it cried. Tears of light rolled down its face, hitting the ground and disappearing like they were being absorbed into something deeper than earth. Elliot felt his chest burn, not with pain, with emotion so intense he couldn't name it. He dropped to his knees without deciding to. The being looked at him, those liquid eyes full of something Elliot recognized. Grief. the same grief he'd been carrying for 6 months. "I know what you've lost," the voice said. "I know why you stopped believing." Elliot's throat tightened. Tears came without permission. "Who are you?" "Someone who forgot their way home, like you." The creature touched the symbol on the ground. The cavern filled with golden light that didn't hurt to look at. It felt like being held. A shape formed in the air above them. A man, surrounded by light, but not distant, not cold, warm, real, breathing. Jesus. Elliot's breath stopped. Not the painting from Sunday school, not the statue in his mother's church. Alive, present, looking at him with love so complete it felt like drowning and breathing at the same time. He couldn't move, couldn't think, could only feel. "He is the reminder of what you are," the being said. "Not what you lost, what you forgot." The figure of Jesus smiled, not with pity, with recognition, like he knew Elliot, had always known him. The photographer's camera, the one still hanging around his neck, cracked. The lens shattered, but somehow it captured one perfect beam of light. Impossible, all of it. But Elliot didn't care about impossible anymore, because for the first time in 6 months, he felt something other than emptiness. He felt seen. The creature remained kneeling, bathed in that golden light. Up close, Elliot could see details that shouldn't exist. Its skin wasn't solid, it moved like water, like it was barely holding form. Veins of light pulsed underneath. It looked fragile, ancient, sad. "Why are you crying?" Elliot whispered, not sure if he needed to speak out loud. The being's response came immediately, flooding his mind like warm water, because even those who travel between stars forget who they are. Tears are the language of the soul, the only honest language left. Elliot wiped his own face. He'd been crying too and hadn't noticed. "What are you?" "A traveler, a seeker, like you." "I'm not seeking anything." The creature tilted its head. Those liquid eyes held no judgment, only understanding. "You come to the desert every night. You point your camera at infinity. You wait for something to make you feel again." Elliot's chest tightened. "How do you?" "Because I do the same thing, just farther from home than you." The light above them, the figure of Jesus, remained suspended, watching with that unbearable tenderness. Elliot couldn't look at it directly. It felt too much like staring at the sun, but he couldn't look away either. "What does he have to do with this?" Elliot gestured at the glowing form. "With you? Everything." The being stood slowly, wincing. A wound on its side leaked that same liquid light. "May I show you something? Before I leave?" "Leave. You just got here. My vessel is failing. I have minutes, perhaps, but I need you to understand first." Elliot nodded, not trusting his voice. The creature moved to the center of the cavern, to that rotating symbol carved in stone. It placed both hands on the ground. The entire cave pulsed. Once, twice, like a heartbeat. The walls became transparent. Elliot gasped. He could see through the rock, beyond it, into something else. Space, but not empty. Filled with light, with consciousness, with beings like this one, scattered across impossible distances, all kneeling, all crying, all praying. "We are all separated from Source," the being said. "Every civilization, every world, every soul that takes form and forgets what it truly is." The vision shifted. Elliot saw worlds he couldn't name, people who weren't human, technologies beyond comprehension, and in every single scene that same figure appeared. Jesus, but different, adapted to each world, each species, each understanding, same light, same love, different face. That's impossible," Elliot breathed. "Is it? You call him Christ. Others call him by different names, the awakened one, the messenger, the reminder. But it's the same frequency, the same love. You're saying Jesus was, what? Universal? Not human. I'm saying the consciousness you call Jesus originated beyond this planet. He came to show you something your species forgot." Elliot's mind raced. Every Sunday school lesson, every sermon, every prayer. "Show us what?" The being's eyes reflected that golden light. That you're not broken, you're not fallen, you're not sinners begging for mercy. The creature stepped closer, and Elliot felt warmth radiate from it. "You're gods who forgot how to remember." Elliot laughed. It came out harsh, bitter. "Yeah, I feel real godlike. Can't even get through a day without falling apart." Because you grieve, and grief is sacred. Grief is hell. Grief is the soul screaming that it remembers unity, that it knows separation is wrong. Your pain isn't punishment. It's proof you loved. Something in Elliot's chest cracked open. The being touched his shoulder. The contact felt like electricity and honey. Jesus didn't come to save you from yourselves. He came to remind you what you're capable of when you stop living from fear and start living from love. Love. Elliot's voice broke. I loved my mother. She died anyway. Death is transition, not ending. She's not gone. She's everywhere. In every particle, every wave, every moment you remember her. Tears streamed down Elliot's face. Then why does it hurt so much? Because you see with eyes that believe in separation. But love sees deeper. Love knows the truth. The figure of Jesus above them began to descend. Elliot's heart hammered. Put your hand on your chest, the being instructed. Feel, don't think. Elliot obeyed, palm flat against his sternum. Warmth spread immediately, through his ribs, into his lungs, down his arms. Images flooded him. His mother's smile, her last words, the funeral, the emptiness. But now something else came with those memories. Light, her light, still there, still loving him, never gone. When you love what hurt you, the being whispered, you meet God. Elliot sobbed, real, deep, breaking open sobs. The creature cried with him, tears of light mixing with human salt. And in that moment, kneeling in a glowing cave in the Arizona desert, Elliot Barnes understood. His mother hadn't left. He'd just forgotten how to see. The figure of Jesus touched the ground. Not physically. It didn't have weight or substance. But the moment it made contact, the entire cavern erupted in warmth. Elliot felt it in his bones, in his blood, in parts of himself he didn't know existed. The being stepped back, giving space, giving permission. He wants to speak with you. Elliot's throat went dry. I can't. You already are. And it was true. Somehow, without words, without sound, a conversation was happening. Direct, soul to soul. The presence didn't feel distant, didn't feel like the cold, judgmental God from church. This felt like coming home after being lost for years, like being recognized. Jesus, or whatever this consciousness was, knelt in front of Elliot. Eye level, equal. Do not seek outside what already lives within you. The words bypassed Elliot's ears entirely. They appeared fully formed in his chest, in his knowing. I don't understand, Elliot whispered. You do. You've always understood. You just stopped trusting yourself. The golden light intensified. Elliot saw flashes, memories that weren't his. Or maybe they were. Maybe they were everyone's. A woman touching a sick child and the fever breaking. Not because of medicine, because of certainty. Because of love so complete it reorganized matter. A man standing in a storm, unafraid, and the wind calming. Not because he controlled nature, because he remembered he was part of it. Ordinary people, doing impossible things, because they forgot to doubt. That's not real, Elliot said, but his voice carried no conviction. It's more real than anything you've been taught. The blue alien moved beside him, its wound still leaking light. Your species was taught to worship, the creature said, to kneel, to beg, to consider yourselves small. Its voice carried pain, old pain. But that's not why he came. He came to show you what humans could do when they stopped pretending to be powerless. Elliot thought about every prayer he'd ever said, every desperate plea for help, every unanswered wish. So all those years I prayed, I was doing it wrong. The being's eyes softened. You were praying from your knees. He gave thanks standing. Do you see the difference? Elliot felt something shift, a fundamental understanding clicking into place. Begging versus claiming, asking versus knowing. He wasn't asking God for miracles, Elliot said slowly. He was remembering that he was God expressing itself in form, as are you, as is everyone. The cavern pulsed again. The walls showed more visions, galaxies spinning, civilizations rising and falling, consciousness exploring itself through infinite forms, and in every scene, that same pattern, beings forgetting their power. Then someone coming to remind them, over and over across time and space. Jesus was one reminder, but not the only one. Every world gets messengers, the alien explained. Teachers who remember while others sleep. Your planet called him Christ. Others have different names. but the frequency is identical. Frequency. Elliot tested the word. You keep saying that. Love isn't emotion. It's vibration. It's the foundation code of reality. When you operate from that frequency, matter responds. Healing happens. Manifestation accelerates. Miracles become normal. The figure of Jesus stood, and suddenly Elliot could see him doing what the scriptures described, walking on water, healing the sick, raising the dead. But now he understood. These weren't violations of natural law. They were applications of deeper law. Law most people forgot existed. Thought creates. Emotion amplifies. Certainty manifests. So when he healed people, he saw them as already whole. His certainty was so complete that reality had to match it. That's not supernatural. That's how consciousness works. Elliot's hands trembled. His entire worldview was reorganizing itself. The alien moved closer, and Elliot noticed it was fading, becoming more transparent. You're leaving. My body is failing. But before I go, you need to understand why I came to you specifically. I'm nobody, just a photographer who lost his way. You're someone who seeks beauty in darkness, who points a lens at infinity and waits for light. That's prayer, Elliot. That's service. The being placed a hand over Elliot's heart. The touch burned, but not with pain, with recognition. Your camera doesn't just capture images, it captures frequency, emotion, truth. You've been doing sacred work without knowing it. Tears streamed down Elliot's face again. I thought I'd lost my purpose. After Mom died, everything felt pointless. Your mother's transition was the catalyst for this meeting. Nothing is wasted. No pain is meaningless. The golden light began to recede. The figure of Jesus faded slowly, like morning mist burning away. But before it disappeared completely, Elliot felt something. A touch on his forehead. Warm, permanent. Remember this. When you forget, and you will forget, remember this moment. Remember that you are loved beyond measure. Remember that you are powerful beyond belief. Remember that separation is illusion. The last threads of light dissolved. The cavern darkened, returning to its natural glow from the stones. Only the blue alien remained, barely visible now, its form flickering like a candle in wind. Show them, it whispered. Show your species the beauty they can't see yet. The light they've forgotten exists. Do this, and you'll never be alone again. Elliot nodded, unable to speak. The being smiled. Somehow he knew it was smiling, even though its face barely held shape anymore. The ship will take me now, but this cave, it will remain active. Come back when you need to remember. Wait, Elliot reached out. I don't even know your name. Names are for forms. I am what you are. Consciousness exploring itself. Light forgetting and remembering. We are the same. And then it was gone. The cavern fell silent. Elliot sat alone in the dark, his broken camera still hanging around his neck. His heart cracked open and somehow more whole than it had ever been. The desert above waited, and he understood, finally understood, that the emptiness he'd been feeling wasn't absence. It was space. Space for something new to grow. Elliot didn't know how long he sat there. Minutes, hours. Time felt negotiable now, like a suggestion rather than a law. His hand stayed pressed against his chest, feeling his heartbeat. Had it always been this strong, this rhythmic? Or was he only now noticing? The cavern still held traces of that warmth. The stones still glowed faintly, like they were breathing. He looked at his camera. The lens was cracked in a perfect spiral. Impossible pattern. Beautiful, actually. He turned it on, not expecting anything. The screen flickered. One image. The last thing it captured before breaking. A beam of light. Pure, golden, and in the reflection on the wet stone, a face. Elliot zoomed in, hands shaking. Jesus. Clearer than any photograph had a right to be. Not blurry, not distorted. Perfect. This isn't real, he whispered. But the image remained. He saved it, backed it up 3 times on different cards, then sat staring at it until his eyes burned. The being's words echoed in his mind. Tears are the language of the soul. Elliot had cried more in one night than he had in 6 months, and strangely, he felt lighter, emptied out in a good way, like something toxic had been drained. He stood slowly, legs stiff. The symbol on the ground still rotated, slower now, dimmer. Will you still be here? He asked the empty cave. When I come back? The The air warmed slightly. He took that as a yes. Elliot climbed back through the canyon, emerging into pre-dawn darkness. The stars were fading. Morning was coming. His truck sat where he'd left it, keys still in the ignition, beer cans in the cup holder from 3 days ago. Normal. Everything looked aggressively normal, but Elliot knew better now. Normal was a lie, or at least incomplete. He drove home in silence, not trusting the radio to make sense anymore. His apartment was exactly as he'd left it. Dishes in the sink, laundry piled on the couch, photos covering every wall, landscapes mostly, empty places, beautiful and lonely. He looked at them now with different eyes. They weren't empty. They were full of frequency, of vibration, of that invisible love the being described. He'd been photographing God without knowing it. Elliot downloaded the images from his camera. The spiral-cracked lens had ruined most of them. Digital noise, blur, nothing usable, except the last one. That beam of light, that face in the reflection. He printed it, hung it above his desk, stared at it while coffee brewed. Okay, he said to the image, to Jesus, to himself. What now? The answer came not in words but in knowing. Deep, cellular knowing. Live differently, see differently, create differently. Elliot spent the next 3 days in silence. Didn't answer calls, didn't check email, just sat with what had happened. People would think he was crazy if he told them. Hell, he'd think he was crazy if it had happened to someone else. But it hadn't happened to someone else. It happened to him, and his broken camera held the proof. On the 4th day, he went back to the desert. Different location, nowhere near the cavern. He set up his tripod at sunset, watching light paint the rocks in shades of red and gold. But this time, he didn't just point and shoot. He felt first. Felt the warmth of the fading sun, the texture of the breeze, the subtle vibration of life, even in seemingly dead places. Then he photographed. The images that came back were different. Light appeared where no light source existed. Colors bled into each other in ways that shouldn't work. But they did work. They were stunning. Not technically perfect, but alive, pulsing with something he couldn't name. Frequency, maybe. Love. Definitely. He took those images to a gallery owner he'd worked with before, spread them across her desk without explaining. She studied them in silence for 5 full minutes. "Elliot," she finally said, "what happened to you? I met someone. These don't look like your work." "I know. They're better." She looked at him with concern and curiosity. "They're much better. What technique is this?" How could he explain? That he'd stopped trying to capture things and started trying to feel them first. That he'd learned to see love as a visible force. "I changed my approach," he said simply. She wanted to show them. "Next month. Full exhibit." Elliot agreed, then walked out before she could ask more questions. He started going to the cavern every week. Sometimes the glow was bright, sometimes barely visible, but it was always there. And each time, he felt that presence, that reminder. You are more than you remember. The photographs changed people. He heard stories. A woman who'd been planning suicide looked at one for 20 minutes and decided to try therapy instead. A man who hadn't spoken to his daughter in 5 years saw an image and called her that night. "What are you putting in these?" someone asked at the gallery opening. "Love," Elliot answered. "Just love." People laughed, thought he was being poetic or pretentious, but he meant it literally. He was photographing the frequency the alien described, the vibration Jesus embodied, the force that held galaxies together and healed bodies and made the impossible normal. And somehow, impossibly, miraculously, his camera could capture it. 6 months after that night in the desert, Elliot's work was in magazines, on websites, in museums, but he refused interviews, refused to explain his process, just kept creating, because he understood now. His job wasn't to convince anyone, wasn't to prove what happened, wasn't to make people believe. His job was simpler. Show the beauty, capture the frequency, let the images speak. Some would see it, feel it, remember. Others wouldn't. Not yet. And that was okay. The alien's mission was complete. The message was delivered. Love is real. Love is power. Love is the technology that runs everything. Elliot lived that now. Felt it in his chest every morning. Saw it in every sunset. Captured it in every frame. His mother would have understood, he thought. She probably did understand, wherever she was. The gallery success should have made Elliot happy, but something felt incomplete. He had the photograph, the proof, that impossible image of light and face and truth, but he'd never shown it to anyone. It sat in a locked drawer in his desk, printed on archival paper, pristine and terrifying. Why couldn't he share it? Fear, maybe, that people would call him a fraud, that they'd dissect it, analyze it, prove it was fake somehow, or worse, that they'd believe it, and then demand more, want him to be something he wasn't, a guru, a prophet, a messenger. He was just a photographer who met someone in the desert. 3 months after the gallery opening, Elliot woke at 3:47 a.m. The number again. He'd been seeing it everywhere, on clocks, receipts, license plates. He smiled in the dark. Not coincidence. Confirmation. Come back, something whispered. Not in words, in knowing. Elliot dressed and drove to the cavern. The drive took 40 minutes, but he made it in 30 somehow, time being flexible again. The desert was alive at night. He could feel it now. Consciousness in the rocks, in the air, in the spaces between stars. The cavern entrance glowed brighter than usual. He climbed down, heart pounding with anticipation rather than fear. The symbol on the ground was spinning faster. The walls pulsed with that liquid light, but no alien, no figure of Jesus, just him and the stones and the frequency. Elliot sat in the center, cross-legged, hands on his knees. "Okay," he said aloud. "I'm here. What do you want to show me?" The response was immediate. "Put your hand on your heart. Feel, not think." He'd done this before, that first night, but something felt different now. He pressed his palm flat against his sternum, closed his eyes, and breathed. At first nothing, just his heartbeat, steady, normal, then warmth. It started small, like a spark, then spread, through his ribs, down his spine, into his arms and legs, and with the warmth came everything. Images flooded him, but not random, specific. His mother, younger than he remembered, laughing in a kitchen he'd forgotten, then older, sick, dying. But now he saw what he'd missed before, light, around her, inside her. Even in those final moments, especially in those final moments, she was glowing, not with pain, with transition, with transformation. She wasn't leaving, she was expanding. "Mom," he whispered, tears streaming. More images came. Every moment he'd considered a failure, every rejection, every loss, every night alone in the desert feeling like nothing mattered. But now he saw the threads, the pattern. Each moment had led to the next. Each loss had opened space. Each dark night had prepared him for one specific encounter. The alien hadn't found him randomly. He'd been calling for it. With every photograph, every prayer he thought went unanswered. Every moment he chose beauty over despair. Nothing was wasted. Elliot breathed. Nothing is ever wasted. The voice was his own, and not his own, layered with something deeper. When you love what hurt you, you meet God. The alien's words. But now he understood them differently. Loving what hurt him didn't mean pretending it didn't hurt, didn't mean spiritual bypassing or toxic positivity. It meant seeing the purpose in the pain, the growth in the grief, the way his mother's death had cracked him open enough to receive this gift. "Thank you," he said to her, to the universe, to whatever was listening. "Thank you for breaking me. I was too closed before." The warmth intensified. His whole body felt like it was vibrating at a frequency just slightly faster than normal. And then he saw it, his future, not in detail, just the shape of it. He saw himself older, gray hair, laugh lines deep, surrounded by people whose lives had changed because of an image they'd seen, not because he was special, because he'd learned to capture something true. He saw the photograph, the one in the locked drawer, finally being shown, and the reactions, disbelief, wonder, anger, awakening. Some would reject it, call it fake, attack him for it. Others would weep, would remember, would start seeking their own encounters. Both reactions were perfect. Both were necessary. "You want me to share it," Elliot said. "Not a question. I want you to trust. Trust. The hardest thing. Trust that he wouldn't be destroyed by the criticism. Trust that the right people would see what mattered. Trust that his job was to offer, not control how it was received." He opened his eyes. The cavern was so bright now he should have been blinded, but he wasn't. The light felt soft, welcoming. Elliot stood, understanding settling into his bones. He would share the photograph. Not yet, but soon. When fear tried to stop him, he'd remember this moment, this feeling, this certainty that he wasn't alone and never had been. You are loved beyond measure, the presence reminded him. You are powerful beyond belief. You are guided. I know, Elliot said. And for the first time, he meant it. The drive home felt like flying, like his truck barely touched the road. When he got to his apartment, sun was rising, golden light through his window. He unlocked the drawer, took out the photograph, studied that beam of light, that face, that impossible, undeniable proof. His hands didn't shake anymore. He posted it online. Simple caption, "What I saw in the Arizona desert, spring 2018. No explanation, no justification, just the image." Then he closed his laptop and went to bed. When he woke 6 hours later, his phone was exploding. Messages, emails, comments, hundreds of them. Some calling him a liar, some demanding to know the location, some thanking him through tears for sharing. One message stood out, from a physicist in California. "I don't know how you captured this, but I've been studying light frequencies for 20 years. This shouldn't exist. The spectrum is wrong, too pure, like it's from a source we don't have access to. I need to talk to you." Elliot smiled. The scientist wanted proof, wanted data, wanted to understand with his mind. But that wasn't the point. The point was feeling, was opening, was allowing the possibility that reality was bigger and stranger and more loving than anyone had been taught. He typed back, "Come to Flagstaff. I'll show you where it happened. But I can't promise you'll get answers. Only questions that matter more." Then he made coffee and looked at the photos on his walls. Every empty landscape now looked full, full of that invisible frequency, full of consciousness playing with form, full of God experiencing itself. The alien had been right. Tears were the language of the soul, and Elliot had finally learned to speak it fluently. His mother's death hadn't ended anything. It had begun everything. The physicist arrived 3 weeks later. Dr. Sarah Chen, 42, skeptical eyes, tired smile. She'd driven from San Diego with equipment Elliot didn't understand. Spectrometers, field detectors, cameras that cost more than his truck. "I need to see the location," she said, shaking his hand. No small talk. Elliot liked her immediately. They drove to the cavern at sunset. Sarah was quiet the whole way, occasionally checking her instruments. "You're getting readings already?" Elliot asked. "Residual electromagnetic fluctuations. Unusual for desert terrain. Could be natural. Could be..." She trailed off. "Could be what?" "I don't know yet." The cavern entrance appeared as the last light faded. That familiar blue glow from inside. Sarah saw it, stopped walking. "What is that?" "You tell me. You're the scientist." She set up her equipment at the entrance, working methodically. Elliot watched her face as the readings came in. Confusion, then disbelief, then something like fear. "This doesn't make sense," she muttered. "The frequency signature, it's coherent, organized, like it's being generated by something intelligent." "It is." She looked at him. "You believe that?" "I know that." Sarah took samples, measurements, photographs, spent 2 hours documenting everything. Finally, she sat down on a rock, equipment forgotten. "I can't explain this," she said quietly. 20 years of physics training, and I have no framework for what I'm measuring." Elliot sat beside her. "Does it scare you?" "Terrifies me." "You know why?" "Why?" "Because if this is real, if there's truly some kind of organized intelligence creating these frequencies, then everything I built my career on is incomplete. Not wrong, just not enough." "Is that so bad?" Sarah laughed, but it came out shaky. "You're asking if I'm okay with my entire worldview crumbling? I'm asking if you're ready to see something bigger." She was quiet for a long time. Then, "Show me." Elliot led her into the cavern. The symbols glowed brighter as they approached. Sarah's instruments screamed with readings. "Sit here," Elliot said, pointing to the center. "Put your hand on your heart." "That's not scientific." "I know. Do it anyway." She did, closed her eyes, breathed. Elliot watched her face change, confusion melting into wonder, wonder into tears. "Oh my God," she whispered. I can feel it, like a vibration, but not external, inside me." "That's love," Elliot said. "The frequency the being told me about. It's not metaphor, it's measurable. You're measuring it right now. Sarah's eyes opened, wet with tears. But how? How is emotion a frequency? Because everything is frequency, matter, thought, emotion. Jesus wasn't performing miracles. He was operating from a frequency most people forgot how to access. You're saying love is, she struggled with the words, a technology? The oldest one, the only one that matters. They sat in silence. The cavern pulsed around them, Sarah's scientific mind wrestling with direct experience. Finally, she spoke. I saw something when I had my eyes closed. What? Connections between everything. People, stars, atoms, all vibrating together, all part of one thing pretending to be many things. Elliot smiled. The being called it unity, said we suffer because we forget we're all the same consciousness. And Jesus? A reminder, someone who remembered while others slept, who showed what's possible when you operate from unity instead of separation. Sarah looked at her instruments, at the readings that shouldn't exist. I need to publish this, present the data, let others verify. You can't. She stiffened. Why not? Because data won't convince anyone who isn't ready. They'll find ways to dismiss it. Call it equipment malfunction, confirmation bias, fraud. So I just stay quiet? No. You live it. Let it change you. Then see what wants to emerge from that. Sarah stood, pacing. That's not how science works. Maybe science needs to expand, not abandon rigor, but include the observer's consciousness as part of the experiment. She stopped, looked at him. You've thought about this. I've had 3 months to think about nothing else. They left the cavern as full dark settled. Sarah's equipment packed away, but her mind clearly spinning. I saw my father, she said as they drove back. In that vision. He died when I was 12. I saw him made of light, still existing, just differently. Do you believe that? I don't know, but I felt it. That's different than believing. Elliot understood. Belief was mental, knowing was deeper. They reached his apartment. Sarah hesitated before leaving. Thank you, she said, for showing me, for not mocking my need to measure everything. Science and spirituality aren't enemies. They're looking at the same thing from different angles. Now what thing? Love, the force that holds everything together. You call it fundamental interaction. Jesus called it the Father. The alien called it Source. Same thing, different languages. Sarah drove away with more questions than answers, but Elliot knew that was right. Questions opened doors. Answers closed them. 2 months later, she called. I quit my job. What? Couldn't keep teaching physics like consciousness doesn't matter. Started my own research group. We're studying the intersection of intention and quantum effects. That's incredible. It's your fault. She laughed. That night changed everything. I can't unsee it now. Elliot thought about the ripples. One encounter leading to another. Sarah would reach people he never could. Would translate spiritual truth into scientific language. The alien's message spreading. Not through preaching, through transformation. That's how it worked. Not top-down, not through authority or dogma. Person to person, heart to heart, experience to experience. I'm going back to the cavern tonight, Elliot said. Want to join? Silence. Then, yes, I'll be there in 3 hours. They sat together in that glowing space. Two people who'd forgotten how to see, learning to remember. The walls showed visions again, not just of this world, of others. Civilizations remembering, awakening, choosing love over fear. It's happening everywhere, Sarah breathed. This shift, this remembering. It always has been. We're just finally noticing. Somewhere above them, stars wheeled in their ancient dance, consciousness exploring itself through infinite forms. And in a small cavern in Arizona, 2 humans sat in light that shouldn't exist, feeling connected to everything, understanding, finally understanding what Jesus tried to teach. That separation was illusion, that love was law, that they were never, ever alone. Elliot's work evolved over the next year, not just photographs anymore, something more. He'd wake at 3:47 a.m., always that number, and feel pulled to create, not from ambition, from necessity. The images became stranger, more abstract, light and shadow dancing in patterns that felt alive. People reported unusual experiences viewing them, dreams, visions, sudden clarity about problems they'd been avoiding. One woman wrote, I looked at your desert photograph for 10 minutes, and understood why my marriage ended. Not intellectually, I just knew, and I forgave him. Forgave myself. How was that possible? Elliot read these messages before dawn, each one confirmation that he was doing what he was meant to do, but something still felt unfinished. He returned to the cavern every week. The glow never faded. The presence never left. One night, sitting in the familiar warmth, he finally asked, "Why me?" The answer came soft, certain, "Because you were seeking without knowing." Elliot opened his eyes. The cavern blazed brighter than usual. Because dead faith attracts life wanting to be reborn. My faith wasn't dead. It was tired. Same thing. You were empty enough to be filled. He thought about the 6 months after his mother's death, the numbness, the nights pointing his camera at infinity. He'd thought he was running from grief. Maybe he was preparing for encounter. The desert brought you here because it mirrors the soul. Empty, waiting, ready. So suffering was necessary? Suffering creates space. What you fill that space with, that's choice. Elliot stood pacing the small cavern. What do you want from me? What am I supposed to do? Show the beauty that human eyes don't see yet. Not just photographing landscapes, photographing consciousness, frequency, love made visible. Your camera is prayer. Your art is service. Every image that helps someone remember, that's divine work. But I'm not religious. I don't even go to church. Religion is buildings and rules. Spirituality is connection and truth. You don't need buildings to serve God. You're already doing it. Something in Elliot's chest released. Tension he didn't know he'd been holding. He'd felt like a fraud. Like he should meditate longer, pray more, read sacred texts. But maybe that wasn't his path. Maybe his path was simpler. Point the camera, capture the frequency, share what he saw. You promise to follow the calling. That promise is kept every time you create from love instead of fear. What about money? I can barely pay rent. When you serve truth, you are supported. Not always how you expect, but always enough. The gallery sales, the licensing deals, the unexpected checks. It had been enough. Just barely, but enough. Stop measuring success by human standards. You're not here to be rich. You're here to be awake. And help others wake up? No. You can't wake anyone. You can only show it's possible. They do their own waking. The distinction mattered. He'd been feeling pressure to convince people, convert them, but that wasn't his job. His job was to create, to offer, to stand as proof that encounters were real. What people did with that wasn't his responsibility. The vessel recognizes you by heart, not performance. What vessel? The presence didn't answer, just pulsed warmer. I don't know if I'm strong enough. You're not. That's why you're perfect. That doesn't make sense. The ones who think they're strong become arrogant. The ones who know they're weak stay humble. Humility keeps the channel clear. Elliot laughed. So my self-doubt is useful? Your awareness of limitation keeps you dependent on source. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. Years of feeling inadequate, not good enough, not spiritual enough. And maybe all of that had kept him open, kept him asking, kept him seeking. Photography is your prayer. Every time you capture light, you're capturing me. Every time you share that light, you're sharing me. This is enough. Tears came. Relief. Permission to be exactly what he was. Not a guru, not a preacher. Just a photographer who saw something impossible and let it change him. Go now. Create. Tomorrow bring someone who needs to see. The cavern dimmed. The conversation complete. Elliot climbed out into the desert night. Stars impossibly bright. He felt lighter, more certain. His path wasn't about knowing. It was about showing. Show the beauty. Capture the frequency. Let the images speak. He drove home as dawn broke. Pulled over and shot 50 frames of sunrise. One image stood out. Light rays forming a perfect cross in the clouds. He posted it. Every sunrise is resurrection. Every morning is grace. If you're breathing, you're being given another chance. Within an hour, someone commented, "I was going to end it today. This stopped me. Thank you." Elliot read it 3 times, then closed his laptop and cried. Not from sadness, from understanding. This was why. This was the calling. One person remembering they wanted to live. One heart choosing light. That was the work. That was enough. The person who needed to see arrived 2 days later. Elliot was at a coffee shop editing photos when a man sat down across from him, uninvited. Mid-60s, clerical collar, tired eyes. You're Elliot Barnes. Do I know you? Father Michael Chen, Sarah's uncle. Elliot straightened. Dr. Chen never mentioned. She told me about the cavern, about what you showed her, about her father. His voice cracked. My brother. Silence. The coffee shop buzzed around them. Normal conversations about normal things. I've been a priest for 40 years, Father Michael said. Dedicated my life to God, to Christ, to serving the church. That's admirable. Is it? The priest looked at him directly. Because after 40 years, I'm not sure I know God at all. I know doctrine, ritual, what to say when people are dying. But know God, feel God. I'm not sure I ever have. Elliot closed his laptop. What makes you say that? Because Sarah felt something in one night that I've been searching for my entire life. She came back changed, alive, certain, and I realized I've been faking certainty for decades. The confession hung raw, honest, brave. You're not faking, Elliot said. You're just using different language. Am I? Or have I been teaching people to worship when I should have been teaching them to remember? The alien's message. Precisely. Tell me what you mean. Father Michael leaned forward. Every Sunday, I tell people to pray, to ask God for help, to confess sins and hope for mercy. 40 years. Never questioned it. And now I wonder if we've been doing it backwards. Jesus didn't beg. He gave thanks. He spoke with authority. He told people the kingdom of God was inside them. Not up there. Not later. Now. Here. Within. Elliot's heart raced. What changed? Why question now? Sarah showed me the photograph. The light that shouldn't exist. Father Michael's hands trembled. I've seen thousands of religious paintings, icons, sacred art. None affected me. But that photograph, what did it do? Made me weep. Made me feel something I couldn't name. Made me realize I've been pointing people toward a distant God when the truth might be closer than breath. Elliot chose his words carefully. The being told me something about tears. What? That tears are the language of the soul, the only honest language. When we cry from love, real love, we align with God. Father Michael's eyes filled. I rarely cry. Trained myself not to. Thought it was weak. The alien cried. Jesus cried. It's not weakness, it's connection. The priest wiped his face roughly. What else did it tell you? That fear is the shadow of remembering love, that every person has God inside them, that Jesus came to remind us of our power, not our powerlessness. That's not orthodox teaching. I know. The church would call it heresy. Probably. Father Michael sat back. But it feels true. More true than anything I've preached in years. They talked for 3 hours. Elliot shared everything. The encounter, the cavern, the visions, the ongoing presence. Father Michael listened without judgment, asked questions from curiosity, not skepticism. Can I see it? He finally asked. The cavern? Now? Please. They drove in silence, heavy clouds hiding the mountains. At the entrance, Father Michael stopped. I'm afraid. Of what? That it's real. That everything I've taught might be incomplete. Or maybe you've been doing exactly what was needed, holding space, keeping possibility alive, even if the language was limited. They entered together. The glow was faint. Father Michael knelt. Old habits, then stopped himself. Stood, hand over heart. Feel, don't think, Elliot coached. Minutes passed. The priest's face cycled through emotions. Resistance, confusion, then breaking open. Oh my God. Light filled the cavern. Brighter than ever, images appeared. Jesus, not suffering, not crucified, alive, teaching, laughing, touching people and watching them transform. He was happy, Father Michael breathed. We always show him suffering. But look, he was joyful. More images. Jesus as a child, learning, growing, making mistakes, being human. And in every scene, that light, that frequency, that love. He wasn't separate from us, the priest said. He was showing us what we could be. Yes, and the church made him untouchable, worshipped instead of emulated. They sat until the light faded. When they emerged, rain was falling, rare in the desert. Thank you, Father Michael said, for not judging my questions. Thank you for being brave enough to question. The message was spreading, not through preaching, through transformation. Sarah the scientist, Michael the priest, Elliot the photographer, each translating the same truth. Love is real. Love is power. Love is the technology that runs everything. 6 months after Father Michael's visit, Elliot woke at 3:47 a.m. with absolute certainty. Tonight was different. He dressed quickly, grabbed his camera, a new one, since the old one never worked again after that first night, drove to the cavern without question. The desert felt electric, alive in a way he hadn't experienced since the original encounter. When he arrived, the cavern was blazing, blue and gold light spilling out into the darkness like a beacon. His heart hammered. Something was happening. He climbed down carefully, camera bouncing against his chest. Inside, the symbol on the ground spun faster than he'd ever seen. The air hummed with frequency so intense his teeth vibrated. And standing in the center, impossible, beautiful, heartbreaking, was the being, the alien. Back. Elliot stopped breathing. It looked different, more transparent, fading, like it was barely holding form. Photographer. The voice in his mind was weaker, tired. You came back. To say goodbye. Properly this time. Elliot moved closer. The being's wound, the one from that first night, was worse. Light leaked from it in pulses that matched a heartbeat. You're dying. Transitioning. Like your mother. Like everyone eventually. Can I help? Is there? You already did. You shared what I showed you. The ripples are spreading. Elliot thought about Sarah, Father Michael, the hundreds of people who'd written about the photographs, the lives changed by a single image. It doesn't feel like enough. It's always enough. One person remembering creates space for another, then another. That's how awakening works. Not in floods, in drops that become rivers. The being moved to the edge of the cavern. Outside, through the entrance, a shape became visible in the night sky. The ship, descending slowly, silent, surrounded by that familiar blue-gold glow. You're leaving Earth. My vessel is failing. I need to return home, or what's left of me does. I don't want you to go. The alien turned those liquid eyes to him. Even fading, they held infinite compassion. You don't need me anymore. You have the frequency. You have the knowing. You have the connection. But what if I forget? What if I lose it? You will forget. Many times. That's being human. But you'll remember again. The cavern will help. The photographs will help. The people you've touched will help. Elliot felt tears coming. Not from sadness exactly. From the weight of goodbye. I never thanked you properly. You thank me every time you create from love. Every time you show someone beauty they couldn't see before. Every time you choose connection over separation. The ship descended closer. The cavern shook slightly. Rocks vibrated with harmonic frequency. Before I go, remember this. The being's voice grew stronger for a moment. Faith is not belief. Faith is seeing the invisible. Your pain was your teacher. Your art is your prayer. Your life is your sermon. I'm scared I'll mess it up. You will. Often. That's also perfect. Perfection isn't the goal. Presence is. The alien moved toward the entrance. Each step looked painful. Each movement an act of will. Elliot followed. Outside, the ship hovered 20 feet above the sand. An opening appeared in its base. Light poured out, not harsh, but welcoming, like coming home. The being stopped, turned back to Elliot one last time. The photograph you took that first night, the one with the face in the reflection. What about it? Share it now. Humanity is ready. Not everyone, but enough. It'll cause chaos, controversy. People will attack me. Yes, and people will awaken. Both are necessary. Both are love expressing itself. Elliot nodded, understanding, accepting. The alien reached out. Its hand, 3 fingers, translucent, glowing, touched Elliot's chest. Warmth exploded through him. Not burning, activating. Like every cell in his body suddenly remembered what it was capable of. You are seen. You are loved. You are never alone. Will I see you again? In every sunset, in every act of kindness, in every moment someone chooses love over fear. I'm not leaving. I'm just changing form. The being turned and walked toward the ship. Its form flickered with each step. Solid, transparent, solid, transparent. At the entrance it paused, looked back at the desert, at Elliot, at the cavern. Tell them, the voice came one last time. Tell your species that God never abandoned anyone. You abandoned yourselves. But the door back is always open. Always. Then it stepped into the light and disappeared. The opening closed. The ship rose slowly, silently, higher and higher until it was just another star among stars. Then it blinked out. Gone. Elliot stood alone in the desert. Dawn was coming, pink and orange bleeding across the horizon. He looked at his camera, realized he hadn't taken a single photo of the ship, of the being's return, of the goodbye. But somehow that felt right. This moment wasn't for capturing. It was for experiencing, for feeling, for letting transform him one last time. He walked back to the cavern. The glow was fading, the symbol slowing, but not stopping, never stopping. This place would remain, a portal, a reminder, a space where the invisible became visible. Elliot knelt in the center, put his hand on the ground where the being had stood minutes before. The stone was warm, alive. "Thank you," he whispered, "for finding me, for showing me, for trusting me with this." The warmth pulsed once, like a heartbeat, like an answer, like a promise that even in goodbye, nothing was truly ending, just transforming, just transitioning, just becoming something new. Elliot drove home as the sun rose fully, the desert painted in gold. He knew what he had to do: share the photograph, the one he'd been hiding, the impossible image of light and face and proof, not because he wanted fame, not because he wanted to be right, because someone, somewhere, needed to see it, needed to know they weren't crazy for believing in more, needed permission to trust their own impossible encounters. He uploaded it that afternoon. No explanation, no defense, just the image and a simple caption: "What came through the light, Arizona desert, spring 2018. Make of it what you will." Then he closed his laptop and waited. The alien was right. Chaos came, and awakening came. Both were perfect. Both were necessary. Both were love. The photograph went viral within 48 hours. News outlets picked it up. Scientists demanded to examine it. Religious leaders condemned it. Skeptics called it obvious fraud. Elliot's phone exploded with messages: interview requests, threats, gratitude, rage. He ignored most of it, but some he couldn't ignore. A teenager in Ohio, who'd been planning suicide, saw the image, felt something shift, checked into therapy instead. A woman in Japan who'd lost her daughter, looked at the light, felt her daughter's presence, could breathe again. A physicist in Germany who'd been stuck on a problem for years, stared at the frequency pattern, suddenly understood, published a breakthrough paper. These were the messages Elliot answered, briefly, simply. "I'm glad it helped. You did the hard work." The image was just a reminder. He didn't do interviews, didn't defend the photograph's authenticity, didn't try to convince anyone of anything. The image spoke for itself, to those who could hear it. The rest didn't matter. His work changed after that, became bolder, more abstract, more direct. He photographed emotions, frequencies, the invisible made visible. A series on grief, images so raw people wept looking at them, but felt lighter after. A series on joy, colors that shouldn't exist together but somehow created harmony. A series on love, simple moments between strangers that captured connection deeper than words. Galleries fought to show his work. Collectors paid prices that made him uncomfortable. But he kept creating, kept showing up, kept pointing his camera at truth. The money allowed him to be generous. He funded Sarah's research, helped Father Michael start a contemplative prayer space outside the traditional church, gave cameras to kids in Flagstaff who wanted to learn. His apartment stayed simple: bed, desk, walls covered in photographs. The only luxury he allowed himself was time in the desert. Every week, without fail, back to the cavern, back to the source. Sometimes the glow was bright, sometimes barely visible, but always there. A constant, a companion, a reminder. One night, sitting in the familiar warmth, he spoke aloud. "I miss you. Is that crazy? Missing someone, something I barely knew?" The cavern pulsed. Answer without words. "You miss yourself, the part that remembered. I was just a mirror." Elliot smiled. The voice was his own now, or maybe it always had been. People ask me if it was real. The alien, the ship, the encounter. What do you tell them? That it doesn't matter. Real or vision or breakdown, it changed me, made me better, helped me see love as something actual, something I could work with. That's the only truth that matters. He sat until dawn, watched light gradually fill the cavern through the entrance. Everything looked different now. Not just the desert, everything. People glowed. He could see it. Faint, subtle, but there. Especially when they loved. Especially when they created. Especially when they chose courage over comfort. He photographed it when he could. That glow, that frequency. Most people couldn't see it in the images, but some could. And those who could always wrote to thank him. I didn't know other people could see it too. I thought I was alone. Your photographs prove I'm not crazy, that what I sense is real. Thank you for being brave enough to show us. Years passed. 5, then 10. Elliot's hair grayed. Laugh lines deepened. But his eyes stayed clear, present, awake. He never married, never had children, but he wasn't lonely. The work was his family. The people his photographs touched were his legacy. Father Michael visited often. They'd sit in comfortable silence, two men who'd seen beyond the veil and survived the knowing. Sarah brought her research team sometimes, showed them the cavern, let them measure frequencies they couldn't explain. Some believed, some didn't. All were changed. On his 60th birthday, Elliot returned to the exact spot where he'd first seen the being fall from the sky. He set up his tripod, waited for sunset. As gold light flooded the desert, he felt it. That presence, not gone, never gone, just diffused, everywhere, in everything. You did well, the knowing came. You kept the promise. I forgot a lot, made mistakes, doubted constantly, and kept creating anyway. That's the miracle, not perfection, persistence. Elliot looked through his viewfinder. The desert stretched infinite, empty and full at the same time. He took the shot, then packed his gear. Walking back to his truck, he felt complete. Not finished, but whole. His mother's death had cracked him open. The alien had filled the crack with light. The years since had been about learning to hold that light steady, to be a vessel, not the source, just someone willing to show what was possible. He drove home as stars appeared. Same desert, same stars, same eternal sky, but he was different, fundamentally, permanently. He'd been empty, now he was full. He'd been lost, now he was found. He'd been searching, now he was home. Not because anything external changed, because he finally understood what the being tried to teach that first night. God wasn't out there. God was in here, in the choosing, in the loving, in the showing up, in every photograph, every breath, every moment of presence. That was the truth churches had been hiding, not maliciously, just forgotten. That humans weren't broken, weren't fallen, weren't powerless. They were infinite, were divine, were capable of everything Jesus demonstrated. They just needed to remember. And Elliot Barnes, photographer, seeker, broken open messenger, had spent his life helping them do exactly that. One image at a time, one heart at a time, one awakening at a time. It was enough. It was always enough. It was everything. Elliot's house became an unexpected pilgrimage site. Not intentionally. He never advertised his address, never invited strangers. But word spread. The photographer who saw something in the desert, the man whose images made people feel God. They came anyway, quietly, respectfully, standing outside his small house in Flagstaff, just wanting to be near someone who'd touched the impossible. At first it annoyed him. He valued privacy, silence, space to create. But then he understood. They weren't coming for him. They were coming for permission. Permission to believe their own experiences. Permission to trust what they'd felt. Permission to stop pretending the world was smaller than it actually was. So he started opening his door. Not to everyone. He could feel who genuinely sought versus who wanted spectacle. But to those who knocked with trembling hands and honest questions, he invited them in. His living room became informal sanctuary. Simple, clean, photographs covering every wall. People would sit, look at the images, and something would happen. Walls would come down, tears would come, stories would emerge. "I saw my grandmother 3 days after she died," a woman confessed, clear as day, standing in my kitchen, smiling. But I told myself it was grief, hallucination. "Was it?" Elliot asked gently. "I don't know anymore. Your photographs make me think maybe it was real. Maybe she was saying goodbye. Does it feel real when you remember it?" The woman nodded. "More real than anything. Then trust that. Simple conversations. Nothing mystical. Just permission to trust inner knowing over external validation. A college student came, physics major, brilliant, tormented. I can see equations in light, he admitted quietly. Patterns, mathematical relationships in sunset colors, in the way shadows fall. But if I tell my professors, they'll think I'm losing it. Elliot showed him the photograph, the impossible light, the face in the reflection. Science and spirituality aren't enemies, Elliot said. They're looking at the same thing from different angles. Maybe you're seeing both at once. The student stared at the image for 20 minutes, then left without another word. 3 months later, he published a paper, New Approach to Quantum Mechanics, based on light patterns he'd observed in nature. It was nominated for awards, changed his field. He sent Elliot a copy with a note. You gave me permission to trust what I saw. Thank you. Father Michael came weekly now. They'd drink coffee, talk about nothing, sometimes about everything. The church asked me to resign, he said one morning. Elliot looked up sharply. What? My sermons changed. Started talking about direct experience, about God being within rather than above, about Jesus as example rather than exception. He smiled tiredly. Apparently that's too radical. I'm sorry. Don't be. It's liberating. 40 years serving an institution. Now I can serve truth directly. What will you do? Keep teaching. Just differently. People are already asking. Want to learn contemplative practice. Want to experience God rather than just believe in God. He looked at Elliot. You started this, you know. That night you took me to the cavern. The being started it. I just showed you the door. And I'm showing others. That's how it spreads. Not through conversion, through transformation. Sarah visited less frequently. Her research consumed her. But when she came, she brought breakthroughs. We're measuring something we can't explain, she said excitedly one evening. Consciousness affecting quantum outcomes. Intention changing probability. It's small, subtle, but consistent. The frequency, maybe. We don't have language for it yet. But it's there, measurable, real. She pulled out graphs, data, results that shouldn't exist, but did. This will change everything, she breathed. How we understand reality, consciousness, the relationship between observer and observed. Will they believe you? Some will, some won't. But the data doesn't lie. Eventually, enough evidence accumulates. Paradigms shift. Elliot thought about that, how change happened. Not through dramatic revelation, through steady accumulation of experiences that couldn't be dismissed. His photographs were part of that accumulation. Small pieces of evidence that reality was bigger, stranger, more loving than consensus allowed. Years continued passing. Elliot aged gracefully, body slowing, vision softening. But something else, sharpening. He could feel people now, their pain, their joy, their readiness. Not psychic exactly, just sensitive, tuned to frequencies most people ignored. When someone knocked on his door, he knew before opening whether they were ready for what he might share. Most weren't, not yet, and that was okay. He'd offer tea, show them a few photographs, send them gently away with encouragement to keep seeking. But some, rare, precious few, were ready, had been broken open enough, had questioned deeply enough, had suffered sufficiently to be available for truth. To these he told the full story, the alien, the cavern, the message, the ongoing presence. Some believed immediately, some took time, some never fully accepted, but were changed anyway. A nurse who'd been with dying patients for decades. She understood immediately. I've seen it, she said. That light you talk about. When people transition, some of them glow, right before the end. Not everyone, just those who aren't afraid. You see it too? I thought I was imagining it, projecting, wanting to believe death wasn't the end. Or you were seeing what's actually there. She nodded slowly, understanding, accepting. I'm not crazy. You're not crazy. You're awake. These conversations became Elliot's real work. More than photography, more than art. Witnessing, validating, giving permission. He wasn't teaching, wasn't preaching, wasn't converting, just confirming what people already knew but feared to trust. You're not alone in seeing this. You're not broken for experiencing that. You're not crazy for knowing what you know. Simple words, revolutionary impact. His house became known quietly, whispered about in certain circles. The photographer in Flagstaff who understands, who's safe to talk to, who won't judge or dismiss. People came from across the country, occasionally from other countries, always quietly, always respectfully. And Elliot welcomed them, one at a time, heart to heart, sharing not doctrine, but experience, not certainty, but possibility, pointing them back to their own knowing, their own encounters, their own direct experience of the divine. "Don't believe me," he'd say. "Believe what you've felt, what you've seen, what you know in your bones." And slowly, person by person, conversation by conversation, the ripples spread. Faith reborn, not as institution, not as dogma, as living experience, as direct knowing, as love made real. On the 20th anniversary of the encounter, Elliot returned to the cavern one final time. He was 65, healthy but tired, ready for whatever came next. The hike took longer now. His knees protested. His breath came harder, but the desert welcomed him like an old friend. The cavern entrance glowed, steady, eternal, patient. He climbed down carefully, sat in the center, placed his hand over his heart. "I understand now," he said aloud, "why you came, why you showed me, why it had to be this way." The light intensified, warming, embracing. "You never left, did you? Just changed form, became part of everything, always was part of everything. You're finally seeing clearly." The voice was his own, and not his own. Unified now, integrated. My mother, the grief, the emptiness, it was all preparation. Nothing is wasted. Every moment serves awakening. Elliot looked around the cavern. 20 years of visits, 20 years of guidance, 20 years of steady presence. What now? You already know. He did. The knowing had been growing, gentle, certain, undeniable. His work was complete, not finished, but complete. The photographs existed. The people were touched. The ripples were spreading. Others would carry it forward now. Sarah with her science, Father Michael with his teaching, the thousands who'd seen the images and remembered. "I'm ready," Elliot said simply. "Not ready to die, ready to transform, to transition, to become something more." The light expanded, golden, blue, infinite. Images filled the cavern. His entire life, not judged, celebrated. Every moment of doubt, every photograph, every person touched, every tear shed. All of it sacred, all of it necessary, all of it love. He saw his mother, young again, radiant, smiling with pride. "You did so well, baby, so well." He saw the alien, whole now, no longer wounded, dancing in that liquid light. "Thank you for carrying the message, for being brave enough to share." He saw Jesus, not separate anymore, not distant, right here, always here. "You remembered." That's all I ever asked, to remember what you are. And Elliot understood finally, completely, without doubt. He wasn't Elliot Barnes the photographer. That was just the role, the costume, the character in this particular story. He was consciousness, exploring itself, playing with form, experiencing love through limitation. The separation had been illusion. Beautiful, necessary, but illusion. He was the alien, the mother, the Jesus, the desert, the light, all of it, all of them, all one thing expressing itself infinitely. "I am," he whispered. "You are." The cavern dissolved, or expanded, hard to tell the difference. Elliot's body sat in the center, still breathing, still present, but his awareness was everywhere, in every photograph he'd ever taken, in every person he'd ever touched, in every moment of beauty anyone had ever witnessed. Not dead, not leaving, just waking up fully, understanding that he'd never been the small thing, the limited thing, the separate thing. He'd always been infinite, always been divine, always been love experiencing itself. The photographer was just how he'd chosen to explore that truth in this lifetime. And what a perfect choice it had been. His body would be found 3 days later, sitting peacefully in the cavern. No signs of distress, no indication of struggle, just sitting, smiling slightly, hand over heart. The coroner would rule it natural causes. Heart simply stopped. But those who knew Sarah, Father Michael, the ones he'd helped awaken, they understood. Elliot hadn't died. He'd graduated, transitioned, become what the alien promised was possible. His photographs remained, more powerful than ever. People reported stronger experiences viewing them after his death, as if Elliot himself was now in the images, frequency preserved, presence permanent. The cavern stayed active, glowing stronger after his transition, like he'd added his energy to it, left himself there as gift. People still visit, still sit in the center, still feel that impossible warmth, and sometimes, rarely but consistently, they report the same thing: a presence, gentle, loving, familiar, a voice that isn't a voice, a knowing that bypasses thought. You are seen, you are loved, you are never alone. Some think it's Elliot, some think it's the alien, some think it's Jesus. They're all right, and all wrong. It's consciousness, source, God, love, the thing that was always there, always speaking, always available. Elliot just learned to hear it, to trust it, to share it, and in sharing, he became it, merged with it, returned home. His final photograph, found on his camera in the cavern, showed pure light, nothing else, just luminous, golden, infinite light. No face, no form, no reference points, just the truth he'd been photographing all along, that everything is light. Everyone is light. Every moment is light, remembering itself. The churches had hidden this truth, not maliciously, just forgotten under centuries of doctrine and fear and control. But people like Elliot remembered, spoke it, lived it, proved it was possible, and slowly, person by person, heart by heart, awakening by awakening, humanity was remembering too, that they weren't broken, weren't fallen, weren't powerless. They were infinite, were divine, were God experiencing itself, just like Jesus demonstrated, just like the alien confirmed, just like Elliot proved. The only question remaining was simple. Would they remember? Would they trust? Would they dare to live as the magnificent, powerful, loving beings they actually were? Elliot's life, his photographs, his encounters, his transformation, offered one clear answer. Yes, it was possible. It was real. It was available to everyone. All they had to do was stop searching outside and start feeling inside. Stop begging and start claiming. Stop worshiping and start remembering. The kingdom of God wasn't coming. It was here, now, always, inside every heart, behind every breath, within every moment of presence. Elliot Barnes found it in a desert, after meeting an alien, through broken grief and humble photography, but it was available everywhere, to everyone, through infinite paths. The only requirement: willingness to see, courage to feel, trust to remember, and the faith, real faith, not belief, that love was more than emotion. Love was frequency, was technology, was the force that held galaxies together and healed broken hearts. Love was God, and God was love, and both were waiting patiently inside everyone who dared to look.